Happy Saturday, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Remedy with PD and crew. PD is going to take a little break again this week. I guess he liked the fact that he didn't have to do much last week, so now he's trying to give up his job. But tune in next week, he'll be back at it. Just want to say a quick hello to everyone who is watching us today. We have a couple of new guests with us, but we're going to go ahead and introduce Pastor Mondi. Pastor, how's it going today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here today on The Remedy.
I know, it's good. I appreciate you being a guest on my show today. I hope you come back again another day, but we'll see how this goes, because this may just be a trial and error. We may not ever have you back. We have one of our always fabulous panelists, Patricia Bermudez, giving us a little fro action this morning.
What's up, Pat?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Or afternoon now. Good afternoon.
Yeah, how's it going?
Good. Things are good. Hanging in there.
You look so relaxed and fresh-faced for someone who's had like 30,000 people with COVID in your house. So,
yeah, tell us, how do you do it, Pat? How do you put it?
I think I'm going to patent my skills to try to keep myself safe, but I don't want to jinx it because there's still one more week of my brother's COVID-19. You know, I FaceTime him, and he's the third person that's had COVID in the house since early February, and literally it's like every 2 weeks when one is finished, another one has it. This is the third one, but he looks good. I FaceTime, I look for the signs. I have him taking his oxygen level. I'm giving Mucinex, I'm giving this, I'm giving that. So there's a pattern, and then there's the double mask. And, it was so weird putting makeup with mask on. My niece was with me fixing my hair, and I had my mask on, and I'm like,
why did you have makeup on?
Huh?
We're going to have another show on makeup and masks. So, I don't understand.
She was fixing my hair, and her and I are the only two so far that hasn't gotten COVID. So we mask around each other. So I have a mask on, and she's fixing my hair, and I'm half putting makeup. I was like, this is just too much.
Okay, but we'll need a tutorial.
This is the hopefully the last week of it. I think this is my brother's 9th day. So hopefully he quarantined till the end of the week. And we went and got tested again yesterday, my niece and I, waiting on the results. I literally think that if you take my car and put it on drive, it's going straight to the Rite Aid drive-thru.
Okay, well, keep us posted. Keep us posted on that. Next to you, we have TJ, who has been on the show before. So welcome back, TJ.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, that's it. Thank you for having me.
That's all we're going to get today.
That's all you have today. Okay, well, we'll wait and see what else we get from the rest.
He's giving it to us later, Woody.
Yeah, I think he is like giving it up later because he's super excited about the show topic today. So we'll and then as a new guest to the show, we have Mbule from Queens, New York. Hello, Mbule. Welcome to the show. We're excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. So I'm excited to get talking.
So on that note, we'll go ahead and talk about today's topic. Is called Equally Yoked. And what does that mean? So I always think of like at least when I talk to people, they always think about like in the Christian sense or in a religious sense, like, are they equally yoked in sense of, do they have the right ideals and ideology on dating? And does that matter? So a while back, I read this post and I sent it to Mondi, and I was like, I think this would be an interesting topic, because it was someone who said that he would, because he is not Christian, he would not date a Christian woman. And I thought that was really interesting, but his reasoning behind it, I thought, was it's because he's not Christian and he doesn't want to lead anyone on. So that led me to think, how would I be in that situation? How would I feel? And so that's where we are today on this topic. So we wanted to get a diverse group of people on with diverse opinions. So we could start off with the pastor. What do you think about being equally yoked?
Well, first of all, I want to say when we mention the word equally yoked, I can't help it but to go back to the biblical understanding of it. All right. And I can't help it either to think about, having two cows walking together in the same direction and they are yoked together. That's the picture that's in my mind. There are verses, Bible verses that corresponds to that. But mainly, I guess for me specifically, when I'm thinking about the word equally yoked means that we are moving in the same direction, more or less. To me, that's one of the very foundation of that word, that we are moving in the same direction. Notice, to move in the same direction requires cooperation. To move in the same direction requires maybe sometimes that I may not want to go that way, but because we are equally yoked, I have to meet you in the middle. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but I don't think about equally yoked only when we think about marriage. You can be equally yoked at your work. You want to make sure that you work for an organization or you build a company that is actually that you support the vision of that organization. You like the direction that the company is going. That can mean that you're equally yoked with that particular place. Same thing with church. You could be in a church and you're not equally yoked with that church. There are churches that you go to and you come back home and you say, "What in the world did I witness today?" Same thing with your friends. You can have many friends, but some friends you may not be equally yoked with some friends, and you have to make the decisions whether or not you're going to continue that journey with them or it's time to say goodbye. So we'll talk a little bit more about those things.
Yeah, that was such a pastor's answer. It was really long. I'm just kidding. I love you. I love you. I'm the host today, so I get to make those
Yes,
comments.
you do.
Patty, when you hear equally yoked, what comes to mind? What do you think?
I guess I have a question for Monday. So then would you then say that, I guess, equally yoked, I guess same vision, same mission is what I think. Same vision, same mission. Although nowadays, my issue with equally yoked is I understand the same
Were you
vision.
asking me a question?
No, don't worry. Don't worry about it. So same vision, same mission, but then my issue with equally yoked is then what does compromise, get? What do we do with the word compromise? And we can kind of talk about that later. That's one of my issue with equally yoked. Same vision, same mission is what I'm thinking, Moody.
Okay. And Boulay, what do you when you hear equally yoked?
I mean, I think what we're really talking about is, being in alignment, making sure that we have similar goals. We want to see the same things for each other. And I think that, so I think that oftentimes when we hear the actual phrase as it's quoted from the Bible, a lot of people assume, material as being an aspect of that. And I think that that is a part of it as well. I mean, you'd want somebody who is willing to partner with you on a vision. So they're willing to play the role, whatever role that is, however that looks. And, having that freedom, right? We all have that freedom to have it look how we need it to look. But yeah, so I mean, I agree with the pastor, and Pat, the idea that you want to have the same foundation, right? Something that you can agree on to build from. And I think that that's the most important thing, however you phrase it. So, yeah.
TJ?
And I would agree with Mbule. I think when I hear the phrase, I think of commonalities. There's been some kind of discussion. Hey, we are together. This is what we both want. And this is what we're working toward. Going back to what Patty said about compromise, I think that's very important because how we start out may not be how we end up. We change throughout that process. So therefore, we need to leave room for some kind of compromises.
And growth, right? Like individual growth and evolution.
Yes.
I think oftentimes that's just lost, but yeah.
Yes.
I learned in MBA, change is the only constant thing. So.
Absolutely.
So, staying with this kind of topic, can you, I guess in the beginning of a relationship that you're starting, whatever it is, whether it's romantic or, physical or whatever, do you guys feel that you have to have the same belief systems for you to grow in a mature, when I say mature, or maturate in a relationship, right? Like, do you feel that like you you know, if you're a non-Christian, that you can date a Buddhist, or if you're a Christian, could you date a Hinduist? Do you believe that like your uh, religious ideologies have to match, or
Your
is
point.
that where the compromise come from? So we
I,
can start with TJ this time. Hold on, we're gonna start with TJ.
Oh, okay. So,
Got excited.
all right. So I guess my answer would probably be, I'm going to say that it's going to be tough, because for someone like me to date a Christian person would be difficult, in the sense that I don't want you to try to convince me to go to church. I don't want you to tell me about, you went to church. There was this great message that, you learned, that you heard from the pastor while being there. And then so you feel so overcome with like growth, change, that kind of thing, that therefore you want me to hear it, and therefore, kind of move in that direction. So and it's probably shallow, I'll say it this way: if we can be together, maybe not talk about that part, then maybe I'll be fine. But I think it would cause a rift, because I recognize that someone who is a Christian, who goes to church, who's practicing the religion, is going to, hear a message. They're going to be in church, and they're going to feel some things. They're going to be touched in some kind of way. And in any kind of situation, when you hear that, you want to share, especially with the person that you were with. You want them to hear it, do the same things, kind of arrive to the same place that you are, and therefore move in that direction. So for me, I'm going to say, I don't want to do that. That's going to be difficult for me. And because one, it's going to cause a rift between the two of us, because here you are, you're feeling this way, and you want me to be that way. But then I'm like, no, I'm not really on that. And then so now it causes that rift. So I'm going to say that would be difficult for me.
And Belay, you look like you had something to say, like you were.
No, I mean, I think that because whenever I think of spirituality and faith, and if I look at the different paths, there are some things that are common throughout, loving your neighbor, supporting, people around you. I mean, they're just being honest, respecting the vows that you take. There are things that, you can come to a middle ground on. You can say, oh yeah, this is a value that we can take on for ourselves. And we can hold this as a foundational value for our relationship as it grows into the future. I think oftentimes, and this is, I think, to your point, TJ, what happens is we encounter lessons and lectures, and things come up, right? These challenges and things come up, and we receive information from many different sources. So what's interesting is, yes, somebody can go to church and come back after hearing an amazing sermon, right? And now it's like, we're not living right because we're not doing this thing, and what have you. But the flip side to that is somebody could also be like, super nutritional, and come home and be like, hey, we're not eating right. And so now
yeah,
you need to be eating
yeah,
like me,
Yep.
what have you. So, when I think about that, it always comes back for me to what are the values that we agree on? Do we agree that we are individuals that are constantly growing and evolving? Okay. So if that's the case, we're going to definitely not agree on everything. So then how then do we go about treating the things that we disagree on? And not even about how do we compromise, because I'm not trying to make you do anything. I don't want to convince you about anything that I'm doing. If I'm going to burn some incense, I don't want to have to convince you that me burning my incense makes me feel good. You can do what you want to do, right? I think the real thing too, though, is if you have children and you start talking about what you want your children to do, then it's like, are we going to follow these sacraments? Are we going to follow these rites? Which ones are we going to now claim for our children as they grow up, and where do we stand with that? So, yeah, it's interesting. I don't necessarily think that you have to have the same faith, though. I think that if you can hold to the true tenets of your faith, that you love all, and make room for all, then you have to give space. You have to give grace. You kind of have to, find a way within yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, those are very good points. I know the pastor's been chomping at the bit. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Um, ouch. So here's the thing. I kind of agree with both of you, but I'm also gonna say I disagree in so many levels as well, respectfully. Um, when Paul in Second Corinthians chapter 6 kind of talk about this topic, when he mentioned that we are not to be yoked with unbelievers. So right there already, to me, I see a problem between someone who's a believer and someone who's not a believer. Now, having said that, I also believe, just as you mentioned, um, I was going to say creme brulee, just as you mentioned that we may not agree on specific things in the Bible, but there are some foundation that I think we should have. And one of the foundation to me that's important is that we are both spiritual beings, or we are both believers. We may not be on the same level, and that's okay. But at least we share that common bond together. Because I think if we don't have that, it's a recipe for disaster later. We may not want to talk about it right now. We may not want to deal with it right now. But eventually, the things that you don't address, the things that you don't pay attention to, will eventually come back later on and become that big issue. I can tell you how many times you see there in marriage counseling, and it's the little things that people didn't want to think about or talk about when they were either dating or courtship and so forth, that those things are the major issue in their marital relationship now. So I think it's important that the two of you establish some ground rules on what is that common thing when it comes to spirituality that we both have together that we can build upon. It doesn't necessarily mean, like I say, that you have to believe everything that I believe in, or even in the same religion. It will help, but it doesn't mean that. But we have to at least have at least some basic foundation, spiritual foundation that we both can agree on. So, having said that, now, if we look at, I always use this terminology. I love looking at, I think what I call power couples. And you look at power couples, and you watch them and you study them, and you try to understand what makes their relationship work. And you realize what they do, they actually complement each other. In other words, where you are lacking, that's where my strength is. And where I am lacking, that's where your strength is. So that complement that exists in the relationship help both partners to be equally, they can stand alone on their own, and equally when they come together, they are so much powerful together. You understand what I mean? So when I mean, we can go on and on. I don't want to take too long because I'm a pastor. I can preach on this for 30 minutes. But this is, again, you have to at least have some foundation to begin with that you both can agree upon.
So I'm going to go to Patty, but Patty, I have a question for you because I know that you and Lewis, your husband, are of two different faiths. And I want to know, how did that play into raising your children, or did it play into that in the same conversation of equally yoked?
And I actually would, thank you, Rudy. And I actually was going to bring that up. When Lewis and I met each other in 92, Lewis was actually an avid Seventh-day Adventist. Lewis grew up, he was born as a Seventh-day Adventist. And I actually used to go to church with him, but I'm Catholic. And then, so we got married in 96. But I personally don't believe in 50-50. I do believe in 51-49. So I'm 51, he's 49. So,
let me ask you a question. When did you establish that?
Well, that's another show topic.
So I was adamant that my kids were gonna be Catholic. But also towards that time, if you guys didn't know my husband, Louis started not really, I guess, going away from the Seventh Adventist Church, migrating more and more. I guess by the time we moved here in 2006 or 7, whatever it was, he had started dabbing into, different things, reading more. So eventually now he does not practice any faith whatsoever, although he knows the Bible very well. So there were times when, but if we're having the kids' christening or graduation, I mean, not graduation, communion, whatever sacraments, Catholic sacrament, and unfortunately funeral, he always attended the Catholic church with me, and vice versa. We would go to his mother's church. There were times that, I used to go to church with my kids every week that I wish he would be at church with me. I'm not going to lie to you. You see that couple with, the husband, the wife, and it looks cute. There were times that I wanted that. But one thing that I have seen, so that my kids were raised Catholic, they went to Catholic schools and everything. However, if there were anything at his mother's church that the grandmother wanted to take the kids, they went there. So it wasn't that you were Catholic and you can't go anywhere else. His side of the family, Seventh Adventist, and was the grandma wanted to take the kids at any time when they were younger, even older, the kids will go. So they kind of got a taste of both, even though they were Catholic. But now that I'm Catholic, and you guys know how I feel about religion overall, and my husband does not feel anything about religion overall. What I realized with myself and even my household is it allowed me, by talking to my husband, it allowed me to kind of mature in some way, because I was totally back then. I'm Catholic, this is how things go. And having someone that is not of the same, and that you started with and watch the person grow or change, and we're trying to captivate with what we know. We always had the platform for the kids. And then I had to at one time say, you know what? Then when he's reading a book, let me ask him, instead of saying, I don't want to do any of that. Why would you even think of changing? What's wrong with you? I'm like, okay, let's talk about the book that you're reading. What is it talking about? Let me try to understand his world, what he's going through and what he's thinking. And honestly, from going that well, then I started seeing how boxed in I was. And my kids, to be honest with you, I don't think any one of them is Catholic now. Everybody is doing their own journey and trying to find themselves. And that is something as well that I think every individual should do. So what I'm seeing is sometimes not being exactly the way that that you want each other, like having that commonality, is not necessarily a bad thing. If you open yourself to seeing, what does the other world looks like? You might educate yourself and you might actually get something out of it. I know it did that for me, because at first I was like, oh my God, this man, oh my God, he's so different. Oh my God, this. And then one day I was like, you know what? Let me entertain. Now we can read books together. We can comment. I mean, I still think my husband is in the left field, but that's my husband. If you know anything about him, that's what he does. But I can actually have a conversation. I can, I've even dabbled into Buddhism. I even, sometime once in a while, I put the Christian I put the channel on that had Judaism, and I'm like, well, let me just listen. Not that that's what I'm going to become. Let me just listen. What's wrong with listening? So for me,
so Kelly, in that same vein, has there ever been a conflict? Like you said that your kids went to Catholic school and they did, the sacraments. Was there ever a point where he was like, or did you guys have that conversation that my kids are going to be doing these sacraments because this is what I believe? Because it sounds like you guys have a level of maturity that a lot of couples may not have, right? Like, so though I don't want us to stay too long on like this whole thing, because I think we can talk about other issues in dating, but I just want to know, was there ever a conflict in how you guys wanted to have your kids grow up spiritually?
I'll tell you, my husband, there are some topics that he's totally big on. There are some things he's like, you know what, you're a great mother. I'm okay with that. He left it up to me. And I'll tell you, if there's one religion that my husband loathes, it's the Catholic religion. He does not believe anything about the Catholic religion. But he said, you know what? That's how you believe. That's how your parents believe. You're a great mother. I will respect that. So we respected. When it came to education, we looked at the curriculum, specifically when we were moving in the Poconos. So what first came was in the religion, was in the fact that the kids had to go to Catholic school. It was the curriculum. When we look at the public school around and the private school, we wanted them to go to a private school. And then eventually at one time we wanted to get them to go to kind of like an academic kind of school. But then the tuition, we're like, well, we don't want to put the tuition so prematurely, and then comes college. So then we settled on the Catholic school as kind of like the middle ground. So that was the premise, not necessarily the religion. The premise was the education.
Okay, that's interesting. So I saw a couple comments come up. I know, Monty, can you pull up a comment again? Religion is like politics. There's another one that came up after. It said people with different views will not be able to last long in the same household. And I thought that was really interesting because I don't know. I think just kind of marrying both of those comments together. I think a few years ago, I maybe would have been able to date someone with a different political view. But in this climate, because of how polarized we've become, I don't know that I could, right? Just certain topics. And so if religion is like politics, do you have to be equally yoked, if you will, in both of those things for you to feel that your relationship can be a healthy one and so that you can have a quote unquote happy household?
I'll tell you, my husband was Republican at one time, and I've been always a Democrat. My husband is independent right now, and I've been a Democrat. We've been married since 1996. I think we focus more on what we have that are common. We do have once in a while some religious, some politics issues and things that we talked about, but the commonality is what we focus on. And we do know that we have differences, but we learn to respect each other's differences.
Okay. PJ.
So I will agree with the comment about politics being like religion and say that I don't think, especially going back to your point of what we just went through the previous 4 years, no, there is no way a Republican can live here. Not in my house. Not gonna happen. Not happening. No.
I can differ with religion with you over politics. Seriously, because that dictates so much of our
we can talk about religion and like probably
basis,
have a debate
and it also
that.
controls.
But what we just went through in terms of politics, no. That is not happening. Nope. Relationship is over. Get your stuff, or I'm getting mine. We can no longer live under the same roof. That's not happening. No, not happening.
And Boulay, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but it's just so on point because it's like, like I said, I could, if you and I have a disagreement with religion, we can have this conversation. But when it comes to politics, I think because so much of it, it's a power thing, right? Like it dictates so much of the resources that we actually have. So your politics can impact my life. If you're like some sexist dude who thinks women aren't supposed to work or have businesses, like it's Zamunda today from what I was going, but you know what I'm saying? It's like if that's who you are, like I can't be with you. I'm thinking Handmaid's Tale right now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's my movie.
That's
my movie.
No way. I it's just too different. And I think that because religion, they're both intimate, right? But religion, because it's looped into your fate, right, in the afterlife, like it tends to weigh on you just a little bit differently than politics do. I can't quantify it. I can't tell you how it does. I'm literally just telling you what's happening in my body, right? And like it just shifts just a little bit because religion automatically is making room for um, differences with from a heart-centered place, right? Whereas politics, it's almost like the room for differences are being forced on us. And some might say the same is true in religion. That's, depending on your point of view. But yeah, I just feel like maybe because religion, we try to come from love with religion. We try to come from a deeper place of compassion, and that's the lesson in so many different faiths. I think that, yeah, it's like, well, whereas with politics, it's so cutthroat.
I just want to go back to Pat's 49 and 51% because we're not gonna let this one go. We're not going to let this one go.
Oh my God.
That there was a reason why, God pulled out a rib from Adam and not the other way around. So,
oh no.
Let me go. Let me explain. I know
Monday,
it's
we're outnumbered.
TJ.
Oh no. Oh no.
That's 51% right there. 51.49.
Here's the thing. We got the 51.49% on the panel right now already. So here's my point though. Here's my point. You know how we value, men, for example, value titles. We value the title of being the president, or we value the title of we're a football player, basketball player. But for some reason, the word husband has a diminishing tone nowadays, to the point is almost like, yeah, he's a husband, but there's nothing prestigious about it. May I challenge, hold on a second, may I challenge this just a little bit, okay? I truly believe, and I'm not picking on Pat, but this is just an
Bring it on.
observation, okay? that when we talk about powerful couple, right? And now, if I was sitting in a counseling session, and I hear my woman say that, I'm just picturing myself. I will have different thoughts going into my mind. Why is she the 51 and I'm the 49? Right now, it's almost like you're saying we are at a different level, and whatever that level is, maybe we may need to explore that a little bit so that you can explain why you're the 51 and I'm on the 49. I think it's important for wives, okay, your wife specifically. It's important that we continue to elevate our men in the same way that we want our men to elevate the wives. That it's okay to say we're 50-50, even though that there's an extra 1% that you are doing, okay? But to literally come on a program and say, here's the 49%, I'm the 51, you're not submitting to your husband. You are not. You're saying that you are now in charge as the woman, and he's the man, and he's the 49%. It's important for us to remember there's a reason why things are established the way they are. Even when you look at family, for example, my wife look up to me when we discipline the kids or whatever. It's almost as if it's, she can tell them what to do, but the kids kind of know if dad talks, or if the father figure in the house says something, it stands. So I'm saying let's be careful how we use the 49-51, Pat, because I want you to see your husband as your co-equal. And no matter what the situation is, we are co-equal. We may have different roles. We may do different things. We may complement each other in different way, but do not use that in public. Keep that in the down low. When you're with your husband in the bathroom, you can use that. Okay, don't bring that out in the public. Okay,
hold on.
Do not do that.
So I'm going to challenge you, Pastor, because you said a couple things, and as I feel like the resident feminist on the show, that jarred me, right? If her husband had said that in front of you, would you have the same visceral reaction?
I would probably say the same thing. Again, the reason why, listen, marriage is hard enough. Okay, marriage is it's a mystery to me. how two people can still manage to live together and operate together. And the more positive we can be in the context of marriage, or in the context of I appreciate you for who you are, the better off, the stronger that marriage is.
Okay.
You understand what I mean?
Now
So
I understand.
in that way, I think it's important not to show that or verbalize that differences in a way that puts one person underneath and the other person on top. It's more or less, we are this partner working together. We have different roles. We bring different things to the relationship, but we are equally. You see, here's the word. We talk about equally yoked. It's not 51-49 if it's equally yoked. Go ahead.
Can I say something? Okay, so let me defend myself. So it's not that deep to Lewis and I. In my house, people come to my house, they're like, you guys should be on a show. We're crazy. We're like, we love each other, but we joke. Like Lewis is 51-49 at times. I'm 51-49. And we sit like, it's really like the kids will hear it. It's not that the kids, the exact example, there's certain things where when he gives me a look, that 51-49 knows, like, Patty, shut up. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's the man. And you guys know that I'm actually very, I'm very loving, very affectionate. So I put my husband on a pedestal. But there are some things I'm like, oh, I'm the 51, right? And then he's like,
I'm glad you clarified. Thank you so much.
So, so for us, we're not deep, like, we're very affectionate, but then we joke a lot in our marriage. Like we got this weird thing. Like people come to me and say, like, why are you guys not on TV? Like, I've said to you guys before, my family might be coming over. I'm like, listen, I need you to be on your best behavior, because I know how you are. And specifically Haitian, if you spend 2 to 3 days, like Woody knows, Woody's been my house, and Woody's different. I think Woody's character and Louis' character jive more, but typical Haitian, my husband is very, like he's very, he's not affectionate, but he's very respectful, but it might take some people off because, you used to people being a certain way or do things for facade, and that's not Louis. My husband doesn't do anything for facade. If you're looking for facade, you're with the wrong person. And if, that's why sometimes people are coming, I'm like, I need you to behave. He's like, okay, I'll go in the basement. That's not what I mean, but he'll go in the basement. So it's like, we're weird like that. We don't play on words, and that's not him. And if you want him to play on words, you're with the wrong person. He just doesn't do it for people,
So thank you for the clarification. Mbule, I think Mbule was going to say what I was going to say just real quick. I think it's important that it can be 51-49 at different phases of the relationship, right? And so also the other thing that I want to point out is that, like, just as you may think that husband has become a 4-letter word, wife has always been that 4-letter word, right? Like wife has always been that in this society. And so certain things that women have fought for to be respected as a wife is something that is very new. And it's something that I think you would be surprised talking to women who are wives, how they feel in their partnership and how they feel society treats them. But Mbule, if you would like to go on.
No, yes to all of that. Yes, indeed. And honestly, I mean, you guys are really, yes. But so Pat, I love that, right? Because I love that you said that, because that's what I got from when you said the 51-49.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
I totally was there with you. I was like, yeah, in that moment, when they were talking about who's going to educate the children, he said, okay, you know what? I'm going to give you this extra %. You got this, and you run with this, and you go ahead and you do it because I don't want to do it. And I think that that's like a real honest expression or experience, that exchange that needs to happen in marriages and relationship, right? Because it goes right back to what Rudy said. Yeah, some days, you know what, there should be like a wheel or something, right? Where you wake up and you say, okay, honey, today I'm at 51%. Where you at? Like, what are we going to be doing and how are we doing this? Because first off, we need to check in on our energy before we deal with these little rugrats we got. Right?
Exactly.
So let's, where are we at? And I also want to say that to your point, you know, humor, keeping it light, not taking everything so seriously is a huge, like, it's so important. And I think that that lends itself to the room and the space that you give, because when you give space for mistakes as well. And you give space for your mistakes and their mistakes and your judgments, their judgments, and you give room. That room allows you to use your imagination and imagine the situation in a different way. Imagine the outcome in a different way. You can imagine your relationship. It's really like the sky's the limit, right? Like however you guys can visualize it to be, you know? So I think that humor just like completely lends itself to keeping it light, keeping the romance, you know, keeping the fun and the play. That's so important. So many couples are complaining because they don't have that anymore. They can't joke with their husband. Everything they say, it's like, oh, it's a fight, you know, like, good God, you want to.
And that's the thing. Like, for instance, we have, like, for instance, I think my son goes to Pace, and I don't remember, he did something. And then I called my husband about it. And then my husband was home. Like, he was home, but he was at a restaurant, and he's like, okay, all right, I'm going to deal with him. And then the next day he got up, he's like, okay, I'm going to go there. And I said, I'm coming. Nope, you're not. You're staying home. I'm handling this. And I will call you when it's done. Now, that was a 51-49, and I was 49. And he's like, I'm going to handle it. I'm going, you're not going. And as wife, I knew that he needed to discipline his son, and I needed to be the 49. As a mother, I'm like, I hope he doesn't kill this kid. I hope he doesn't kill this kid. But I knew it was my time to sit back and let the man handle his son. It's a black kid. He needs to handle his son. And I knew my place was to be the 49% and just pressing God that he doesn't kill the boy. He didn't kill him, but he existed.
So here's what I'm hearing. Here's what I'm hearing. And again, you know, I was not trying to be the bad guy. I just wanted some clarification.
Right.
We do have people who look at 51% differently.
Agreed.
This is what I'm hearing. Okay. This is what I'm hearing again. You basically, all you did is just explore that 51% dynamic and how it changes at times. And all I'm hearing is that you have a support. It's a support between the two of you guys. You guys support each other. You support each other completely. You are equal partners who have different goals. And from what I'm hearing is both of you value each other equally. But when you just make a blank statement, and everybody know I'm 51 and my husband is 49, that's different when someone hears that outside of context. Then after you explain all that, it's absolutely something else. Because what I'm hearing again, it works for you, and I appreciate you, you know, being vulnerable to express exactly how that works. I just didn't want us to leave this with this feeling that, you know, it's okay to verbalize that 49% as a positive thing for the female, and leaving the man as a 49%. For the woman. and I was going to say men, but anyway, thank you for that. Again, it's great.
It's semantics.
So guys, I appreciate this, and I think that this could be another, like, again, that's like another pin. And so I will also be buying a shirt that says that she is 51%. Kate, I know you're watching. Look out. That's coming in the mail. But I want to switch gears just a little bit.
I just want to add one quick thing, just to one other thing that Pastor Darcenville had said earlier. He had said that it's like, you know, the husband being like, you know, people don't want to say husband. I beg to differ. When these ladies get married, they call us up like, oh, God, I'm married. Yes. He's my husband. It's not like, oh, he's my husband. No, he's my husband. My little sisters, these little girls, all of them, they just all over.
I'm glad you say that.
Okay, he's your husband. He's my husband. So
you are absolutely right. At the beginning, it's still the honeymoon stage. You get that often. But when the honeymoon stage is over, when the couples are
when he calls his wife and says, "Baby, I'm gonna handle that," that's when he's once again my husband.
There you go.
but you know, for me, I had to watch myself over that, because when I first met Lewis back in 1992, even my mom, it was the cutest thing because Lewis loved Optimus Prime from the Transformers. So he would tell all of us, all my college friends, all of us to call him Prime. So for the longest, I would call him Prime. So then when we got married, when we talk, he would always tell people, my wife, my wife, my wife. But then when I'm talking, I was always Prime and Prime. And I remember I was talking to a friend one time that's, it's a common friend. They're like, how come your husband is always saying my wife and you're always saying Prime? I had to then take it back and kind of be conscious about that because, again, from the beginning, I used to call him Prime. Even when we got married, to me, that was my way. And then sometimes I started calling him Booby or something like that. But then when we got married, it stayed with me. And I wouldn't say my husband, unless I was talking to a total stranger. But knowing that he was calling me his wife, and I was like, well, the outside world might see it as he's calling you wife and you saying, even though it was a nickname, a sweet nickname that I love, I had to then start saying my husband because I didn't want people to perceive it. But in the same token, I feel like for me, I shouldn't care what the world thinks if my husband and I know what's going on in our house and how we love each other. My husband is not the lifetime type of husband. That's not who he is. But whatever he is, it works for us. And
Patty, I love that you're like, you need to just have a podcast on you and your husband, like thing, because you're just like on a roll. But I just want to kind of like bring us back and switch gears again. So, Mbule talked about romance at one point, and so I guess my question is, not oftentimes, but sometimes, right? If you are religious, premarital sex comes up, right? So how do you deal, I guess, to everyone on the chat with someone who is, would you date someone who does not believe in premarital sex? TJ. I mean, I saw your reaction, but I want you to elaborate. Like,
so it's 2021. Absolutely not. That's ridiculous. That we cannot pretend that that's going to be something that's governing us while dating. Absolutely not. No.
No, you don't want to elaborate. That's it. It's just no. Like, no.
Well, I'm not. I don't think I need to. I think because of our age and just no is what I'm gonna say, and then I'm gonna let someone else answer.
Okay, so I'm gonna take it a little bit further, TJ, before I go to someone else. So you know how like who is it? Steve Harvey had that like 90-day rule. Is the 90-day rule okay, or is it like?
No, it is not. No. None of those rules in 2021.
She has to be ready on like whatever.
Not even ready, but maybe an honest, mature conversation, just kind of understanding. So as much as we talk about being equally yoked, if your sex life is not good, how does the relationship progress? That's one of the needs that needs to be met amongst two people. Like, so, I mean, I like you, things are going well, we have great conversations, but you do not satisfy me sexually. We're not getting far. We're not getting far. You are now moved to the friend category. So no. I mean, premarital sex. But okay, Pastor, let's see what you're gonna say.
This is one category that I will say Christian deals with the same way that non-Christians, and I'm just going to be honest with you. When it comes to sex while dating, or when one person may say, well, we're going to hold out, and the other person may say, well, we're not. So that by itself is going to create some conflict between the two of you. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy on the relationship, but it's going to test the integrity of that relationship. What I mean by that is, are you, and I'm not, jumping on Tommy, but you're not in a relationship just so you can taste and see that the Lord is good, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean?
Well,
Um,
maybe Tommy
Good
is.
Lord. Oh, Lord, you should not
you,
put the Lord with that. Oh my God, no.
listen, this topic may not be suitable for small children. You understand?
Not even that. The
You're the
Lord
one that said
said,
taste and see, and Tommy says he wants to taste and see before.
But what I'm trying to say, however, is that again, the two of you has to decide what's important. And here we are again. We are the threshold where we have to decide. You know, are you with me because of that alone? And if I'm not giving that to you, does that mean you can't be in a relationship with me? Um, or, I mean, again, for us men, this is a straightforward thing. Most men will say, well, yeah, I want to find out, I want to do X, Y, and Z. And even though they might go back later on and talk to God about it and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it, but whatever. Um, we're just keeping it real. But this is going to be one of those places where we talk about equally you that can either make or break that relationship. Some people will say, you know what, I value your opinion. I don't agree with it, but you know what, since I love you this much, I'm going to try as much as I can to hold out as long as I can until whatever. And some people will say, well, you know what, if this is where you are, I don't want to be in that kind of relationship where we're not going to have sex and I'm out. So again, it's gonna take right there again. This is not a 51, 49%. This is where we got to be 100% honest with each other and figure out exactly why are you still with me? Because guess what? There are couples who don't have sex for whatever reason. So let's say you're married to that person that you love, but for whatever reason now your sex life is not what it used to be or what it can be. Would you leave your spouse now because she cannot have sex or he cannot have sex with you?
But I think before we go, that investment is already there.
yeah, that's different.
I think it's a different thing. I think that, like, if I am in a relationship with someone and we've already established our marital life or that type of world, and then something happens, right? I think that's a very different thing than, okay, no more, done. You understand what I'm saying? And so I think that those are two different kind of scenarios. Listen, I have a friend who years ago was dating this guy, and because of religious reasons, he didn't believe in premarital sex. And she cheated on him, and she broke up with him because as much as, and here's the funny thing, they met each other at church. So they met each other at church. They were in part of the same small groups, right? She was really active in the church, but she was like, yo, like sometimes I have an itch that needs to be scratched. And while I agree with you on the foundation, like we're quote unquote equally yoked on everything else, right? We believe in all of the same things or whatever. That was important to her. And so it not made her, but unfortunately she broke her for a lack of a better term, her commitment to him, because that was of importance, and she ended up breaking up with him. So I do think that it is important for a lot of people, even, like people who are both Christian, and especially now, I think we're like, and Mbele, I can pivot to you. I'm also of a certain age now, right? Where it's like, there's less, I don't want to say like I have less time for certain foolishness or patience or any other adjective. And so like I know that the partner that I find now, it's not my time with them is not going to be as long. So I want to enjoy them for as much much time as I can, right? Like, so I think that it's I think it's an interesting thing when you become of a certain age. And so
You know, it's so interesting when this question was coming up. I was like, oh, you know, I wish we had younger people on the panel. I thought, because I was like, I'm at this point in my life where, you know, for me, it's like I'm not. I mean, listen, you're not pressuring me into having sex. It's just not happening. I don't need 3 months, but I want it to happen when I'm ready for it to happen, right? So for me, it's like I'm clear about like certain things about who I am. If I were to meet somebody right now who, you can't be at my age and still be telling me that you're not having sex before marriage, I'm not going to believe you. Maybe you found Jesus and you turned 40, you found Jesus and you decided to do something different. Okay. I mean, yeah, like I just don't
On
really
to the
see it. I
next.
think that, yeah, like this has to be, I think we're at the point when you get to a certain age, it's really about how organic the relationship evolves. And if it evolves very organically, very naturally, in a beautiful way, kind of want it to go where it's going to go without these quote unquote rules. And I think also it's the idea that something is a hard and fast rule, as if it's not bendable or it can't be broken or it can't be shifted if the situation called for it. So yeah, you know, like I think I get it, you know, premarital sex is a thing in the church, but I've outgrown that thing, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm with you on with that. You know, it's definitely something that, you know, and I think of like younger kids, you know, sure, it's like, oh my gosh, don't go do it unless you're ready to do it, you know, and I think it's because of the what we put on to sex in general, right? All the things that we attach to sex. So I think that's a part of it. I think that there's room because I'm into a lot of different things. There is room for
Okay,
understanding.
we're not going to talk about
No,
That's another show. That's another show.
real quick. What I'm saying to you though
talk
is
about the
that, you
kinky
know,
stuff.
when if
Okay.
people who understand abstaining, right, can understand the building of intimacy that can happen when you are abstaining. And so for me, it's like if you're abstaining, it should be with intent. It should be for a purpose, for a reason, right? And when you decide to stop abstaining, it should be because you feel energetically drawn to connect with this person at this level. You know what I'm saying? And that's that. And that's your own evolution. I'm not, but you no to pressuring anybody to thinking just because we went out tonight, we're going to have sex. That's just not okay. It shouldn't be something, you know, to me, it's not frivolous. But you know, it's a new time. You know what I mean? I'm sorry. I feel like I'm rushing because I have to get off and go to.
No, you're
No,
not. You're
no,
not.
you're rushing. Keep it.
I
So,
gotta hop off. So yeah.
Patty, I'm going to ask you this question, but also now here's a part B to it. Understanding that you are a mom of of young people. I don't want to say kids who are of a certain age demographic who are in their 20s. Like, how are you then having that? How are you then able to have that conversation and have that conversation honestly with them?
The sex conversation? Is that which
Well,
conversation?
not just that, the premarital sex and I guess the premarital sex one. And two, do you ever have a conversation about them? Like, is it like, don't have premarital sex, or if you have premarital sex, make sure you're equally yoked? Like, where do you lie in that space?
Well, when they were teenagers, we had conversation about definitely premarital sex, saying that of course we would prefer you wait until you're married, but seeing that the probability of that is low if you are going to have sex, and specifically your first time, make sure that it is with someone that you really care about, and definitely a lot of protection. I mean, I've seen condoms in my kids' purses or whatever, and I'm like, okay, at least they're protecting themselves, whatever. So so that's one. And then in terms of like what they do on their first date versus their second date and things like that, again, I still trying to instill value in my kids. Remember, value first. However, you're also talking about a generation that is all about evolution. It's all about unorthodox stuff. So what you and I think as norm, they want to really remove all the labels. So at the end of the day, we instill the values that we have and continue to hope that they would practice the values. But my kids are very open in terms of the unorthodox things, and they are champion for changes. So, we just hope that, they do them to the best of their knowledge, to the best of their knowledge. It's, they're in their 20s. It's a decade of growth.
Right.
A decade of growth. And
couple decades, actually.
Exactly. So we pray
Pastor,
God for the best, and we hope that they continue to remember the values that we instill in them. But most importantly, we try to allow them, and my husband does a better job at that than I do.
Your husband one more time.
No. I'm just telling you guys.
I want that husband.
We try to allow them to talk to us, to, when they come and talk to us, we need to talk to them. They need to come to talk to us as, okay, they're not coming to their mom and dad. Like, I have to remind myself, you know what? Okay, that's a 20-year-old talking, and just listen. Like, I had a conversation with them about the whole sugar daddy, and I didn't act like a mom. And the stuff that I heard, I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, okay, don't act like a mom. Get more information. Don't act like a mom. So just trying to be open. This is the decade that they're in. They're in their 20s. You can't be like, don't do this. You can say it, but they're all in their own apartments. They're going to do what they want to do anyway.
So before we, Mondi, I have a question for you, but before we go, I think Mbule, you have to drop off.
Yeah, I have to head out, and it was a good time. Thanks so much for having me.
You got to come again.
I'm always, Rudy knows. All I need is a 24-hour notice. I'm good. I'm like, okay, sure, why not?
Okay.
I enjoy a good debate, a good conversation, and exchange of ideas. So thank you so much for having me. It was great, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest.
Bye.
Thank you.
So, Mondi, I saw one of the comments that said, when you go to the store, don't they allow you to have like free samples or something like that? Like,
yeah.
So,
what about that comment?
Of what?
The second part was the dealership lets you drive. I just want to know how many free samples are too many.
Oh, that's all my
One word, WTH. Like,
oh gosh. Okay, so I think this portion may be getting us into a little bit of trouble. So,
I just want to put a plug in real quick. Since we are diving into that conversation by accident, there will be a conversation about sex on April 10th. So if you enjoy a little bit of what's going on right now, come back on April 10th. We will actually have a sex therapist on the show as well that day. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, and then you can, I think, I don't know, there might be some other surprises. So Tommy, mark that down. You might learn something,
Oh, I'm there.
So, oftentimes when we talk about equally yoked, and I think this one is a little bit of, I don't know if it's a structure. So we talked about like, kind of like spiritual beliefs, and we talked about sex, but we don't talk about finances, right? Like, how does finances play a role into that? And does it, like, could you, like, if someone has a crazy amount of debt and you are, you got that 800 FICA, are you really trying to get with that? And how do you deal with that in finances? I just want to kind of also say that my parents, I talk to people and I realize that, like, my parents is like, whatever money comes into the household, it is the household's money. There aren't separate bank accounts. But more and more I hear people talk about like separate bank accounts, and you pay this and I pay that. So how does being equally yoked financially, is that even something that we even consider, think about, or can that be an issue? Pastor, if you want to start.
Wow. It's a very tough one. Here's the thing. When we talk about equally yoked, I truly believe it's a choice that you have to make. It's a choice. Having said that, you have to weigh in different factors, different things that may be important to you. So if you gave the example of someone, credit scores. Nowadays, I tell my young people, if you are dating, you make sure you find out the credit score of the person you are dating, because it's important. Because it's no longer about you, it's going to be about us. If the two of you end up being together in a marriage relationship, both of us going to struggle a little bit longer than we needed to, because we didn't look at what we needed to look at when we were dating. So again, it goes
But
back to
Monday without Monday, you said that, but then when Tommy said he wanted to know the other side of the person, you didn't feel that was as important. Some people would put finance and sex on the same level.
again, that's the reason why I say make sure you have a conversation about it to determine what's important to you in that relationship. For one person, it may be sex. For another, it may be financial freedom. So having that conversation is part of figuring out whether or not we are equally yoked. And again, it's a choice that you are making. And it is a very empowering statement when you say that, because if you don't like the direction that you are going with a person, you have the ability to change it. That's the beauty of courtship and dating and so forth. You have that ability. You don't have to stay in that relationship. You can leave that relationship at no matter how good it was. But if you find out when the things are not really going in the direction that it should be, that both of us can agree, that at some point both of you can say, you know what, we did the very best we can, but we really don't see the same thing. We don't have the same values. We don't want the same thing in life, and it might be the best thing to do to go your separate ways, and it's okay. I used to believe when I was younger that once you are dating someone, I grew up in the church, and I'm going to say this to church folks. And the church, the moment that you are yoking with someone or dating with someone, the expectation is marriage. They want you to get married. It's like, get married, get married. You've been dating for a year. You can be dating that long because you don't want the devil to get in your relationship. Listen, I've done that, and it was one of the greatest mistake in my life, because I listened to church folks putting pressure on you into marrying, and you married for the wrong reason. You should never do that. You should always make sure, and again, educate yourself. We live in a time where young people, you have access to the internet. You can look up people's information. You can do a criminal background check on the person you are with and find out if they ever been arrested. Find out what their credit score is. Sit there with them, talk to their parents, talk to their friends, go on their website, go on the internet, find out what they into. Do your research before you finally claim someone to be your equally yoked.
Um, Tommy, as the other, so like you're the other single person on the panel besides me. Do you think about finances when you are entering in, or even dating, courting, yoking, whatever the adjective we want to use?
So I'm going to say no. I'll say that in my mind, finances is probably the final step once you've decided that you guys are going to be together long term. So I guess at my age, to talk about or think about dating is going to lead to marriage. That's mature, but also probably not practical, because things like finances, and before I go there with doing a criminal background check and that kind of thing, I think I'll look at finances as the last step, and I'll explain why. So I have a coworker who's been married for about 22 years. Her husband happens to be Cuban. He grew up in a household where the mother and the father never ever shared their money. They never shared their money. They held separate bank accounts. So when she married him, she grew up in a household like you, Rudy, where all of the money that came in, it was the household's money. So being married to him, where he's like, no, I'm keeping my separate bank account. She needed to keep hers, and then bills still got paid. So for 20 years, that's been her life. And whenever, the first time she told the story, I had never heard anything like that, or didn't believe that women would go for something like that, because I grew up in a household where my father, it used to just crack me up. I thought it was the dumbest thing. I used to watch my father come home and give my mom his money, and she pay all the bills. I'm like, so what do you get to keep? You worked. You went out and you worked for the money. Like, do you get any of it? And then like he would like be explaining like, no, that's kind of like the role of the man. I need to make sure that my family is provided for. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't get any of it. Like you worked for it. Like you don't get any of it. So I always like kind of grew up thinking like, oh, I'm never doing that. My money is my money. But then again, I've never been married, so I've never had to do something like that. So I do believe that finances are important. Credit scores and those things, especially if you're building a life together, that information is important. But I think to this day and age, because people kind of live above their means, portray that they have more than they have, and that kind of thing, I think that conversation only comes into play once you have decided, hey, we've dated for a year. Where are we going? Where do we see ourselves after a year of like hanging out, being together, because people could be together 2 years, 3 years, and it still not end up in marriage. So in my mind, that's kind of like that final step of the relationship when you mutually decide, hey, I like this. I know where I want this to go. Now let's talk about, what you're bringing to the table, what I'm bringing to the table. And when we combine our lives, how is this going to work?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. That makes sense. I think for me, it's a little different. And the reason why I say that is because I am also single. I'm of a certain age, and I also make like, a certain amount of money. And so when dating men, that sometimes become a touchy topic, finances, because if you sometimes dating someone who, if I make more money than them, then it becomes like I dated someone and I was like, oh, I want to go to this restaurant. And he was like, I didn't get paid yet. And I was like, well, I'll pay. And he's like, so you throwing it in my face, you make more money than I do. And it was like, no, I just wanted to eat at that restaurant and have some good wine. Right. So like finances become a little bit sometimes a touchy topic for women, in the sense that because of what Monty said earlier, that men they like titles and they want to be the breadwinner sometimes. And so when you date someone and you realize that you can't be the breadwinner, it then like makes it makes it almost like a ticking time bomb sometimes. I had to stop dating that guy because every time it was like always something, right? Like I bought him something and he was like, what you trying to say? I couldn't buy it for myself. No, Negro, I thought you looked good in it. Like, you know what I mean? So like, so when it comes to finances with that, so it's like, it became a topic that like, I didn't even want to broach sometimes. And then, you get this other thing from other men who are like, well, you should give like this type of brother a chance, just because I'm like, no, I don't want to give y'all a chance. I don't want to give that brother a chance. He got potential. That's a promise between him and God. That's not me. I need somebody who's like on my same kind of wavelength. So yeah, I think finances for me is important because I just don't want to have that kind of like always in the pit of my stomach being worried that there's going to be a problem because I make more money or I may have more, I don't know, just like more flexibility when it comes to stuff. And so Jessica says, because I'm balling. I am not balling.
Cousin, you balling. You balling. Make your excuse. You work hard. You balling. That's yours to keep.
Yeah, no, it is all of it. Right. It's just, I'm not balling. I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable as a single woman who pay a lot of taxes in New York City. Like a lot of taxes, but it plays a role in like who I choose and who I decide to even entertain, unfortunately. And that's because of so many of the issues that I've had in the past. So Patty, I think maybe your situation is a little different because you guys built it together, right? Like you built what you had together because you guys were so young when you got together. So it's like a different kind of transition. But does that still kind of did that play a part in that beginning process for you? And does it play a part now?
In terms of finance?
Yeah.
So we are unorthodox in every single way. when we first, like you said, we had nothing. We both came out of college, and we barely had anything. So we built it. But in terms of how we make decisions, and that's where we're going, right? With this, okay. In
Well,
terms of how,
no, I guess my question is that, like, does the finance play a role, or how you manage finances play a role in your relationship? Like,
and Mondy's gonna kill me for that, because although Lewis is an accountant, I'm the one that managed the finances.
Why
I'm
would
the
I kill you?
one on this one.
Why would I kill
talking
you?
about that 51% again. I'm just
I
gonna
know 51, and although he's an accountant, we went through a lot of we had a lot of growing pains in that area. My husband is an accountant, but my husband bounced checks left and right. And I used to work at a bank when I first came out of school. And I'll tell you, I'll give people and I'll give charity. But when the bank take $25 out of my money, when I know that they really don't need it, it really bothers me. So we had to, we found out the hard way. I'm like, I'm the one that needs to take care of it. So, and it's okay. It's okay. So what we did, I think for us is our journey, you find out who's good in what. Society dictate who should be doing what, but then when you in a house, you find out who's good in what. And then whoever was good in what becomes the person that does that. And that's what we do. So society, we might do a lot of things unorthodox, like I said. We do things what works for us. And for the finance, Lewis is an accountant, but when it comes to the household bills, I'm the one that pay. When it comes to finding out who's the landscaper, who's the this, who's the that, Patty. As a matter of fact, I just started because I was like, okay, with COVID, I was like, okay, you know what? If something should happen, you guys don't know like who the mortgage company is, who this, who that. So I actually started a Google sheet because I'm like, I have all of that in my head. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
so I was like, okay, I'm going to start a Google sheet that the whole family know what's the password, what's this. So, that's what it works for us. And there's some, like, you guys know, Lewis is bigger chef in the house than I am. We're quite an
Hold on, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Don't say big.
the best chef.
Say Lewis is the chef.
He's the chef. You don't cook.
He's the chef, and you're great at ordering. Like,
Again, you see, Pat, I want to go back to what we started earlier. What I'm hearing is that you guys complement each other, and I think that's what we are trying to drive home with the show. When I look at my relationship with my wife, I would say it's very unorthodox as well, because in one sense, I'm the one who pays the bills, but Kate is the one who's always in the lookout for when things are on sale. Like she will buy Christmas gifts in July. She knows when the sales are going on. She knows if we're gonna go on vacation, she'll figure out a way how we can go on vacation and spend as little as possible. Even though I'm the one paying bills, when it comes to those things, I'm clueless. When it comes to investing the money that we have, I'm clueless. When it comes to do it outside of the box, I have this vision tunnel of this is what should happen with the money, and she's like, no baby, you gotta find a way to make it grow, and there are other ways to make to do this. So again, we have people come with different skill set, and the key is not to let this, well, I'm the man of the family, or I'm supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z, and you're supposed to do ABC. Is to figure out, okay, what is my strength and what is your strength, and how can we bring our strengths together to build this relationship, this empire, this community that we are building. And when I listen to you, but that's what I'm hearing. You guys continue to complement each other in ways that are very in a way it's very structured. You may not think it's structured, but it's very structured, because you know your role, and you know when to step up, and he knows when to step up, and vice versa.
yeah. I mean, I think we're coming close to the end, but I think it seems like the whole topic of being equally yoked falls into kind of like broad it checks off two boxes, right? And one is finding someone who you complement and also you can compromise with. And so like each one of these, like we kind of had like different buckets that we were speaking about and talking about, whether it was religion, and then we talked about politics, and we talked about sex and finances. It just seems like when you find someone who you can complement and compromise with, it makes things just a little bit easier. And so, you know, whether you're on a dating site or you meet someone at a bar or at church or at a soccer game or introduce, I think that's what we need to think about. And, you know, I think that I don't know that it would be easier, right? Because it's like tough out there. Patty and Monty, y'all don't know, y'all are off the market. But you know, TJ streets. So
I heard you were off the market too, Rudy, but anyway.
I listen, we're not wait. Rudy's still on the market. So listen, you're trying to get me in trouble. Okay. I just think that, like, you know, it's just about compromise and complimenting each other. And so and we can do that outside of romantic relationships as well. Monty, you talked about being equally yoked earlier, about friendships. And so there are people who you meet who it's just kismet, right? And it's because of those things. Like Tommy and I met, and it was like off the bat, like, oh, I like this fool and I like this fool. And so we keep each other laughing. And so that has helped our friendship grow. And so think about that as well. Think about the different relationships you have and how equally yoked you want them to be. So, Pastor, if you have any final words.
No final word, except we have another birthday among us. We have Cynthia who's celebrating her birthday. And we also have my cousin, who's Lori, who's also celebrating her birthday. So we
are you sure she's your cousin and her name is Lori? Because the way that you just like paused.
Not only that, she's Monday and I godchild. So yeah, we share a godchild together. Yeah, Monday's her father, and I'm the godmother.
So what was Nellie thinking? Who like
what? That's the greatest ever. What you mean?
Okay. All right. So I guess
what is being displayed at this particular time, Patty, is called jealousy of the utmost. And we'll have a conversation on the show about that soon one day. But again, we want to say, guys, we want to thank you, each and every one of you, our guests, TJ and Boulay, who's not here, and Patty, you also having a birthday coming up this coming week, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you know, we don't want to forget your sister Kate. Just send you her happy birthday. So we want to say happy birthday to all of you guys. We love you very much. And Woody, I'm liking what's happening here on the site. You know, you're getting good at this. I have to training you guys, you know, because I'm not the show. We are the show. So this is good. This is really good.
Well, this will be the last time. I've posted 2 weeks in a row. I will be giving the helm back to you. So
I got you.
Pass off.
I got you. But yeah, so if you enjoyed the show, family, don't forget to subscribe to our Facebook page and our YouTube page, and share the video with your friends, with your family, and come back. And we're here every Saturday from 12 to 1 o'clock. It was a wonderful show. Great job. Thank you, TJ, for being here. Pat, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Those of you who watched the show and participate in the discussion, you guys made it all worth it. So thank you so much. It's time for us to go, but I want to pray for you before we go. Father God, I ask that you will continue to bless each and every one of us who are here watching this show right now. We may not know what it means to be equally yoked, but you do. Please help us to do it your way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Until next time, say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Okay.